2 long years since Book 2 of the More Than Conquerors series came out. And if there's one question I have heard throughout this time, it was, when is Book 3 coming out? The answer to that question is soon, I promise. But until then, I thought I'd give you a sneak peek into the process that has been going on behind the scenes. As an indie author, I've had to figure out all these things myself along the way. I hope you will enjoy seeing my process, and maybe it will help you on your journey as well. One of the interesting things about the More Than Conquerors series is that when I got the original idea for the series, I instantly wrote down the main conflict that would happen in each book. Other ideas came along while working on the first 2 books or while listening to my favorite series, The Ranger's Apprentice. I've collected all of these ideas over the years in notebooks and binders, on my phone, anywhere I could write them down. So now I just have to figure out where it all goes. Shortly after finishing Book 2, I discovered my mistake. After years of being a reader that could keep track of story worlds and details without a problem, I realized the same could not be said when it came to stories I myself came up with. So before I could get started on Book 3, I had to make a series binder. So a lot of the ideas I'm about to tell you about I had right away, but what took the longest for me to complete was that series binder. I had to go through and write down all of my characters, all of their details, the story world, everything. And that took quite a bit of time. New ideas, of course, came flooding in, and as well as new characters. Despite being part of a series, there are going to be some new characters introduced in this book. One of the characters was one that was technically already introduced, but we have never had her point of view or really experienced her personality, and that is Anne. Anne is the 4th sibling of the Piscius family. Just to remind you, the oldest one is Peyton. He runs the forge to help pay the bills for their family, so the younger siblings can go train to be nobles. Then we have Zoran, a fan favorite. Then Jackie, who I was delighted to realize developed her own fan base in Book 2. And now we have Anne. Anne is very different from her siblings, mostly because she happens to be very shy. Shyness is often looked down on by people, which causes those who deal with it to feel very alone, and I wanted to show what it was like. I think everyone can feel shy on occasion. I certainly can. But there are a few people who feel it so vividly that they struggle in interactions that most find normal. Anne is one of those people. She is also an absolute sweetheart. She's definitely going to be one of my favorites, and I see a great destiny before her. A new character to the world of Endor that is going to be arriving in this book is Athelos' fiancée. I named her Euphara, and if you want a hint at her personality, I encourage you to look up the meaning of her name. She is from the island kingdom Barthmont. She is confident, sassy, and has a soft spot for Trident. More on her later. Another new character is Gwyn. She was a surprise to me. I'll talk more about this in the next video where I'm talking about plotting my book and discovering the storylines. So for now I will say that I needed a sweet character that was going to change Athelos for the better. I struggled to pick her name at first, so I went to the King's Daughter writing camp and asked my friends on there for some suggestions. There were some great ones, but I actually liked the name of one of the campers instead and asked to use her name, and she graciously said yes. There are, of course, several other new characters that will be coming up in A Year of Miracles, but most of them are going to be one-off side characters. But more on that later. One of the earliest questions I asked myself was, where is Athelos' fiancée from? The idea of her being from an island kingdom was extremely tempting. If only I had thought of that when I made the map 2 books ago, right? I quickly wrote down an explanation that it was just such a tiny kingdom that Endor hardly recognized it at all. I wanted this land to be reminiscent of coastal towns I visited over the years. Unfortunately, I've never visited an actual island, so I didn't have any personal knowledge in that regard. I also wanted something unique about the island. I got this idea from one of the Ranger's Apprentice books. I love listening to them on Audible, and I always get inspired by their stories. In one book, there's a country where the people love coffee. They drink it all the time, they have coffee houses, and the idea of a coffee house on an island was just too good to pass up. I decided I just had to have this unique quirk about Barthmont, that they did not drink in alehouses, no. They drink coffee in coffee houses. Which was a lot of fun to take our teenage characters who did not drink coffee into a place where they had to try it for the first time. I don't know about you, but I didn't like coffee on my first sip. Or the 100th, honestly. I personally feel like Pinterest is an author's best friend. I absolutely love creating boards for my different writing projects. As a visual person, it's a great way for me to start to see my story. For the More Than Conquerors series, I have already created a board with sections for my main characters and other world-building details. Still, I wanted to create a specific section for Book 3 with inspirational images from my new characters and specific scenes that I have been imagining. The last step in my brainstorming phase is research. Here are 3 things that I researched for A Year of Miracles. Even though this is book 3 in the series and the world is pretty well established, there's still some new things that I had to research for it. Number 1, tiny owls. Many of my friends know that I love owls. They were actually my favorite animal before they became so popular about 10 years ago. That being said, a common question I've been asked is, why does Jasmine have a hawk for a pet and not an owl? The answer to that is that I didn't want my book to be too similar to Harry Potter. Now, I've never read Harry Potter, but it's such an iconic series in our day and age that I didn't want people to think I was copying it by having a pet owl in my book. I don't regret that decision, as Shay has become one of my favorite characters. But I also still love owls so much that I've been dying to add it to one of my stories. In book 3, I got my chance. The idea first came when I saw a reel, which I'll attempt to link below, that showed a teeny tiny owl and a lady saying that she would be too small to carry the mail in a Harry Potter movie. I've actually seen an owl like this firsthand. My family was visiting a national park in San Jose, and a volunteer from their animal rescue program asked if we wanted to see their owl. It was so cute. I totally geeked out on it. So I decided that Emmeline needed an owl. I just had to figure out why. Eventually it came to me. Emmeline is part of the Claret family, whose main job is to be ambassadors to other kingdoms. They might need to send messages back and forth to Endor. Emmeline will now start a division of her family's business where they use messenger birds, and a tiny owl will be her personal messenger. I'm so excited for this. Number 2, the island kingdom / coastal living. The characters see the ocean for the first time in this book, and I used a ton of personal experience for this. Which, by the way, if you'd be interested in a special edition of my books where I reveal all of my author secrets and how I came up with my ideas and the scenes, let me know in the comments. This scene in particular was inspired by my 6th grade class when we took a trip to the ocean. For many of us, it was our first time. I remember how excited we all were to go play in the waves. There were boys splashing each other, girls holding hands and running into the water together. And something I remember doing, my friend and I started picking up seashells. All of this is going on in the book. I pulled inspiration for how the kingdom was kind of arranged, from trips to San Francisco's Fisherman Wharf and Monterey's Wharf. Last thing I researched, knife throwing. This was the most fun to research. And please don't judge my lack of skill too harshly. Throughout the series, Zoran designs different weapons for his friends. In this book, I decided he would design a set of knives. Of course, I had to buy some and give it a try. As you can tell, I was not a natural talent. However, it inspired my character's reaction to trying them for the first time too. Knife throwing is a skill like any other. It takes time and practice to get better at it. I just hope that my character is better at it than I am. With all of this done, it's time for me to start the plotting/planning stage. As you can probably tell, I'm definitely not a pantser, but I'll explain more about that and my process in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.